So I was reading the report that has been recently published, World Tourism Barometer, and we see a very positive trend in tourism growth in 2025. So UN Tourism reports international arrivals up 4%.
We saw, for example, an extreme recovery in the Middle East. Arrivals to the Middle East are now almost 40% above what they were pre-pandemic.
Behind these figures as well, let's delve deeper into these regional growths in tourism. So Africa, you mentioned that Africa recorded the strongest growth in 2025.
Look at Africa, it's a very positive story. It's still a region that, despite the fact that it's a very rich region in terms of resources, in terms of extension, it's still a region that has a relatively small share of international tourism. So there's actually an immense potential to see.
Do you think destinations are adapting fast enough, or is demand changing faster than supply?
To invest in airports and roads and border facilitation, and invest in accommodation and in infrastructure is it takes time, it's expensive. So I think this is something important as we continue forward.
I just want to know that what transformation have you personally seen in villages that became part of this initiative?
There's a very clear, I would say, community pride that comes with the recognition. But at the same time, also we allow these villages to have national visibility and international visibility, which in other way they would probably not be able to.
First thought and no overthinking. One tourism trend that surprised you most in 2026?
That's a difficult one. That surprised me the most. Maybe it's difficult to surprise me by now. I can't tell you one that has surprised me the most. I think most of them we have seen, I believe trends do not emerge overnight. They start creating themselves as we go along.
The nation doing data-led tourism really well right now?
Better use their data for analytics. I would say Brazil is a good example to look at currently.
Tourism in 2030, optimistic or cautious?
Optimistic.
A very warm welcome to you, dear Sandra. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Where are you joining us from today?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm currently in Madrid, which is the headquarters of the UN Tourism, and we're very happy to be with you today.
Thank you so much for being here in the PTM Podcast. Looking forward to our discussion. So, UN Tourism Market Intelligence and Competitiveness Department leads and publishes data and insights through its initiatives like Dashboard, World Tourism Barometer, impact assessments. But behind those numbers are real destinations, communities, and livelihoods. How do you personally see the role of data in tourism today?
Thank you. Well, I think we cannot know where we come from or where we go without data, and we're leaving, I would say, also a new age in terms of data with all the developments that we see in big data, artificial intelligence, technology. So I think we are in a moment where also policymakers value more and more data-driven decisions. And tourism is, I always say, a relatively young sector, although one that has grown significantly in recent years. And we are probably still one of the sectors which is quite advanced in the use of data. So I would say data is the backbone of what we should do. Because without data, we can't really know if we are going the right way in terms of our objectives. We can't know what the impact of the sector is, and we don't know how to attract better markets for our destinations or how the population is impacted by the development of the sector. So I would say data needs to be embedded in all our planning and our management of the sector.
So, what excites you the most right now when you look at global tourism data?
Well, I think I would say two things. One is that there's a biggest awareness among policymakers of the importance of data, and that translates into a more strategic and targeted policy decision making. But also, it allows us who work in data to really use data for policy making, not just having data for the sake of having data. And the second one is all the opportunities that come to actually understand consumers better from a more, I would say, updated perspective with big data being available, either mobile phone positioning data or data on social media comments or bookings or searches in different platforms, which gives us different signs that complements the official data, and that allows us to have I would say, a pulse in the market.
So, if we just go a little bit back during COVID, data did become a survival tool for many destinations. So now we are in recovery. How has the role of market intelligence evolved over this period?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges we faced in COVID, and I remember we were struggling with it, is naturally countries could not provide official statistics because they could not, there would be no movement, but also detecting early signs of recovery was very difficult because we would need to have really market data. So by then, what we have done is actually partner with different companies that would provide us global data and regional data on their booking trends. And we saw that month by month as we were improving the situation, and also the regions, how they were differently addressing that challenge. No, so I think one issue that also helped us be more aware of the importance of data, and particularly data from markets, is that within COVID, people got used to look for other alternative data, which then stayed. And also, there was a closer collaboration between the public and the private sector, because it was the only way that we could have information on what was happening.
So is it fair to say that destinations that used data well during COVID are now recovering faster and more sustainably?
Well, I don't know if there's a causal relationship, but I think those destinations which started maybe during COVID to embark on more data strategies are now better prepared if something happens in the future because your systems are set, your partnerships are there, your data and your intelligence systems are there. So I would say that they are ready in a better situation if there's another crisis, but also to anticipate and see early signs of any changes in the market.
Correct. So I was reading the report that has been recently published, World Tourism Barometer, and we see a very positive trend in tourism growth in 2025. So UN Tourism reports international arrivals up 4% last year, close to pre-pandemic growth trends. So what does this tell us about traveler confidence today?
Well, I think what we've seen is in very good sense that we are now back into levels of pre-pandemic, which is very good news. Actually, at the world level, we're currently around 4% above, but it's also very different among regions. We saw, for example, an extreme recovery in the Middle East. Arrivals to the Middle East are now almost 40% above what they were pre-pandemic. We've seen a good recovery in Africa, Europe, very much, I would say, a positive recovery, 6%. Asia Pacific is still at the end of 2025 around 9% below pre-pandemic levels, but also because destinations in Asia took a little bit longer to open. So the recovery took a little bit longer also because when they opened, much of the air capacity had been shifted to other destinations, and until the capacity was back, took some time as well. So what we see currently is also that we are, I would say, back to more normal growth rates, because obviously, as we were recovering from COVID, we saw extremely high increases because we were in a recovery phase. And actually, we do expect that as we go for the coming year, there will be, I would say, normalization of growth into historic levels, which it's not that we will be growing slower, but we will just be growing more or less at the level that generally international tourism would grow.
Yeah, I just want to understand the reasons behind these figures as well. Let's delve deeper into these regional growths in tourism. So, Africa, you mentioned that Africa recorded the strongest growth in 2025. Like, if we just read the numbers, 81 million saw uh, an 8% increase in arrivals in 2025, uh, with a strong demand in North Africa. So, what do you think? What's just driving this momentum, and what lessons can other regions learn from Africa region as a whole?
Well, I think if you look at Africa, it's a very positive story. It's still a region that, despite the fact that it's a very rich region in terms of resources, in terms of extension, it's still a region that has a relatively small share of international tourism. So there's actually an immense potential to see growth today. Africa represents around 5% of all international tourist arrivals. But we have seen, if we look, for example, at the countries of North Africa, which have been performing very well, we saw one point in terms of air connectivity. So there has been a strong development of air capacity. Also, product diversification, very important, and foreign investment. So we've seen that those destinations have really improved their capacity in that sense. I would also say that then you have other destinations which are benefiting from intra-regional traffic, so traffic within Africa, which is also positive. And beyond Africa, as we're talking also in terms of regions which are grown significantly, we see, for example, the Middle East, where there has been in I would say the majority of the countries a positioning of tourism as a strategic activity in the diversification of the economies of the region, and that has been accompanied by strong visa facilitation policies, investment in obviously infrastructure and capacity, strong marketing. So those have also had positive results. And then we had some of the region destinations like Qatar, who have hosted big events as well. So that has all contributed to the performance of Africa and the Middle East.
Yeah, so I just want to shed some light on Europe and Americas as well. Europe remains the largest destination. I mean, it received world's largest tourist arrival, around a record around 793 million international tourists, which is a 4% increase from 2024. And Americas, we can see mixed results. So, why is there so much contrast between both the destinations when we do believe that the consumer sentiment and the demand is relatively high for both these regions? So, what you would have to say about it?
I think Europe, as you rightfully said, represents around 50% of all international tourist arrivals. It's also important to note that around 80% of those arrivals come from the region itself. So it is European source markets traveling to European destinations. And we have seen on one side, if we look at countries within the European Union and the Schengen area where you can travel easily without the need for border controls, we have seen that those countries have in recent years grown significantly. But also a very interesting trend is that we are seeing, I would say, emerging countries in Europe which have attracted increased interest when we look back at their data compared to pre-pandemic, for example. And it's very interesting to see the rise of destinations such as Albania or Uzbekistan, destinations which I would say would be emerging and have been really consolidating their growth. And again, much has to do with air connectivity, visa facilitation, and also an open of new destinations. No, so you have repeated visitors, but you also have many tourists looking for opening for new destinations. In the Americas, actually, the situation is interestingly very diverse as well, because you have destinations in the Caribbean, for example, who have had a good year. Some of them affected by hurricanes, despite of everything. But compared to pre-pandemic, for example, Dominican Republic arrivals in 25 were almost 30% more. So very much consolidating their recovery. We're also seeing Brazil very highly in the last year. And then we have other destinations which might be also more dependent of the US market, which might be more affected, but the results overall, they're relatively positive for the region.
Right. So let's talk about the region where I come from, Asia and Pacific. So Asia and Pacific are still 9% below 2019 levels, yet the growth is strong. So what do you think is holding recovery back, and what's accelerating it?
Well, I think we have again a diverse situation among the different regions. We've seen, for example, Japan and the Republic of Korea with a very strong growth. In the case of Japan, the currency exchange, which makes Japan more affordable to travel to, has been a significant factor for those interested in traveling to Japan, has motivated more demand. And then we also see destinations recovering, such as the Maldives, which is very much a beach destination, Sri Lanka, and then smaller Pacific destinations like Fiji. But obviously, there's still some destinations where they have either a significant Chinese market, so it took them longer to recover, considering that China took a little bit longer also to open for travel after COVID. And also, because we are talking about the accumulated growth as we go along, as I mentioned before, when the opening took place, much of the air capacity was deployed somewhere else. So airlines had to reorganize. Many people during COVID times could not renew their passports, for example. So also you have a lag moment where people cannot travel. But we do believe that this year, 2026, we will see the rebound of Asia Pacific.
All right, so let's now shift towards people, from regions to the people. What are the biggest theme based trends you're seeing beyond geography?
Well, we're seeing an increase of interest of trying to discover what we call off the beaten destinations. So I think people are more interested in destinations which would not be top of mind, either in their own country or internationally. We also see, and this will probably be connected with the increase in travel costs. We've seen that inflation in travel services has been higher than other services inflation. So we see a trend of very much value for money. So people saying, okay, I will spend, but I want to have an experience that's rewarding. And then we see niche markets, I would say, a growth in wellness, in interest in wellness and well-being, either mental or physical. I think also as a consequence of the time we probably spent closed during the pandemic still. We also see a very interesting trend around gastronomy, other kinds of products that are connected to local experiences. And I think this is something that we will continue to see in the coming years.
So, do you think destinations are adapting fast enough, or is demand changing faster than supply? How do you see that?
Well, I think it depends very much, and I think the sector has shown a great capacity to adapt. I think COVID was unfortunately a strong testing ground for the capacity of tourism to adapt. There's naturally constraints in terms of infrastructure, because also as the sector grows, the capacity to invest in airports and roads and border facilitation and invest in accommodation and in infrastructure is it takes time, it's expensive. So I think this is something important as we continue forward. Also, that destinations are able of investing in multimodality, so connecting rail with air travel to make an experience easier for travelers and more seamless. And I think that we are seeing, and we need to remind ourselves that 80% of the businesses in tourism are SMEs. So we also have a big challenge in terms of technology adoption. Although the sector is stepping up, we need at the destination, at the country levels, to support these smaller businesses to be able to be more competitive.
Right. Let's move towards Best Tourism Villages initiative by UN Tourism. So this is one of the most inspiring initiatives um, of UN. Why was this program so important to launch?
Well, actually, we launched the initiative during still COVID. In 2020, the organization declared the year as the year of tourism and rural development. And it came with two objectives. One, we do believe that tourism can have a significant role in helping some of the challenges we see in rural areas, including the population. We see there's migration from rural areas to cities, but also that tourism can be a driver of conservation in rural areas, either culture, nature, creating small businesses. And when we were looking at it, we're also in a moment where we see a high concentration in certain destinations. So ensuring that tourism can be dispersed in the territory not only brings benefits to rural areas, but allows you also to promote longer stays, local businesses, and at the same time manage concentration of flows in more popular destinations. So for us, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know that what transformation have you personally seen in villages that became part of this initiative?
Well, I think we were actually having this discussion very recently. I think we can look at impacts in two levels. One is, I would say, intangible impacts. There's a very clear, I would say, community pride that comes with the recognition. But at the same time, also, we allow these villages to have national visibility and international visibility, which in other way they would probably not be able to. And then we have, I would say, the important point of, because we work this process with the ministries of tourism to ensure that these villages are connected with the national level so that they can have the opportunity to also scale up their development. And then we are also seeing a very interesting outcome, which is the recognition is not just the recognition. We create a network after that with the villages. So we nurture them, we create forums where they can change their own experiences, learn from each other. And we are seeing a lot of peer-to-peer coming together. So villages creating agreements between them, study tours that go from one village to another. Some of the countries, for example, in Japan, they created a national chapter of best tourism villages to learn and create stronger links. And in some, we have seen naturally an immediate increase in the number of visitors when the moment they get more exposure and visibility.
You mentioned that you make sure that these villages are well connected with the governments, with their ministries at national level. So, how does this initiative change the way governments think about rural tourism and community led development?
Well, I think it's been an interesting shift. I would say the program really started end of 21 because it was when we recognized the first cohort of villages. And I would say in these 4 years, we have seen, first of all, the topic of tourism in the rural development agenda gaining traction, which is good. And we have seen some countries taking the process itself to their national level. For example, Argentina is one of the countries where there's a national promotion for the best tourism villages. They give them spaces in their trade fairs. They have a whole process of supporting them. So we are seeing that in many countries, the topic itself has gained relevance in the policy decisions and planning, which for us was one of the objectives also when the program was created.
All right. So, UN tourism often talks about partnerships being part of its DNA. Why are public private partnerships so critical today in this time, more than ever?
Well, I think the challenges that we face are not only bigger than individuals, either governments or destinations or private sector, but they're also very intersected. No, when we talk about climate change, there's a social impact, there's an economic impact, there's an environmental impact. When we talk about inclusion, again, there is consequences in terms of competitiveness, but also of social fabrics. So there's no way that either governments alone or regional destinations or private sector can solve the issues alone. So this is very much one of our biggest roles is, first of all, to bring governments together at the international level. We're an international organization, UN specialized agency, so that those governments can work together also in an international agenda for tourism, and at the same time, one that contributes to the objectives of the United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals, and at the national level to ensure that also public and private sector work together. And it's important to say that this doesn't happen also just because people are willing to work together. That's a first step. It's a very important step, but then you have to have governance mechanisms. You have to have systems by which there is a consultation process, there's a decision process that is done together, and each government needs to put those in place either to coordinate with the private sector, but also with other ministries. Tourism is very cross-cutting. We are a sector that impacts and is impacted by visa policies, transport, education, mobility, infrastructure. So we need to be able to work in a consistent way with all the different government agencies as well.
So let's move towards some fun segment of this podcast. I have jotted some rapid fire questions that I'm really looking forward to listening to your first thought on them. So this is going to be one sentence answer, first thought, and no overthinking. One tourism trend that surprised you most in 2026.
I would say, that's a difficult one. That surprised me the most. Maybe it's difficult to surprise me by now. I can't tell you one that has surprised me the most. I think most of them we have seen, I believe trends do not emerge overnight. They start creating themselves as we go along.
Okay. Data point every tourism minister should check monthly.
Uh, Income. What is generating, and I know it's only one sentence, but ideally also impact on their community.
Okay. One myth about tourism data you would like to bust.
That it's easy.
It's never easy. Data and analytics are very difficult. Destination doing data led tourism really well right now?
Well, I think there's different ones. I think there's destinations which are looking very much into better use their data for analytics. I would say Brazil is a good example to look at currently. I would say that there are Portugal as well, and not because I'm from there, but because there is a market intelligence strategy and also a vision in coordination with other partners in the country.
One mistake destinations make during recovery phase.
Focusing on recovery only, which obviously is very natural, but ensuring that short term and long term can be combined.
Okay, that's very insightful actually. Underrated tourism segment for future growth.
I would probably say family travel. I think we're seeing a bigger, people need to spend time with their families. Unfortunately, the day to day doesn't allow for that. So breaks become a special moment.
But I think that has been replaced with leisure, business and leisure coming together, and many are taking.
Yeah, also. And I would say a lot of solo travelers as well. There's more and more single people in the world, which will lead to group travel among friends as well. I think I think travel is a reflection of society. So how society moves, we will move.
Okay, okay. Policy or promotion, which matters more today?
I think ensuring that tourism is good for the destination, either for its people, and really have a people-centered approach.
Best tourism village initiative in Onward.
Community.
One thing small destinations can do immediately to compete globally.
Come together. I think we've seen that in small destinations. It's small pieces, but if you put them all together, they have an immense value.
Tourism in 2030, optimistic or cautious?
Optimistic. I think we obviously will continue to grow. The sector is expected to continue grow significantly in international tourist arrivals, but we need to manage it in a way that it can be a benefit with its natural externalities that we need to plan well and manage even better.
Our rapid fire round was very insightful. I have curated this rapid fire in order to get the insights from our experts, and you did very well. That was insightful.
Thank you. I just missed the trend. I'll think about
You,
it.
you can tell me later on about it. Okay, so this is the last question. When you look at tourism's future, what gives you the most hope?
I think people, and we currently have a challenge also in the sector, which is in many countries, tourism is facing important labor shortages because we are living in a moment where in many countries employment rates are high. So there's also competition with other sectors, but I think there's opportunity to grow and particularly to be an entrepreneur in the sector, which is significantly important, especially for small places, as we were talking about the best tourism villages, for example.
Right. So, PTM Podcast is the initiative of Pakistan Travel Mart, and Pakistan Travel Mart is the South Asia's leading travel trade show. So, I want to understand your perspective about what role can platforms like these travel marts, trade delegations, and B2B collaborations play in shaping smarter tourism?
Well, I think they're essential, and particularly in today's world where a lot can be done online. I think we can do a lot offline, but there's no interchange of know-how that can be more effective than when people face each other. And I think travel shows are still an important part of that, to learn, obviously, trends, see what destinations are doing, but most importantly, to create and nurture these connections among people.
Thank you, Sandra. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and wishing you all the best for the travel show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just